Hey, Alex here. When I first started learning Othello, I always wondered why and how do the experts actually decide on which moves they play. I almost feel like I really wish to know what exactly goes into their thought process in determining moves. And now that I've established myself to be slightly more experienced as a player, I would like to actually start a new series to invite advanced players and above to exhibition games, broadcasting our thoughts live on Zoom, and at the same time verbalizing that thought process in terms of each and every move. I believe that some of the thought process that goes into deciding these moves will actually help give players like yourself more insights as to how you can think the game and what kind of ideas you can actually put into deciding what move to play. So without further ado, let's go for the game. So hi everyone, so today this will be the first Othello exhibition game, and my first guest today is Mr. Ngiam who was actually the winner of the last Singapore Open just earlier this month. So this should be a good game. I'll be playing black and he'll be playing white. Okay, so I'll just start off with my favorite e6 orientation.
And my favorite perpendicular.
Okay, maybe I'll just go with the cat variation.
Continue with book opening.
Okay, so I'll just play the normal tiger variation.
This is also my favorite book opening because both variation I'm quite familiar with it.
Usually there are two options. Probably go either e3 or f6. So e3 goes to the typical tiger opening, and f6 goes to the Stephenson variation, which is also popular among Japanese players, and I think it's also catching on among European players because too many players actually learn the variation for e3 in terms of tiger opening. So let's go with f6 to Stephenson.
For me now, the most common move is either c6 or e7, which is no Kong or just following Stephenson. I personally prefer just following Stephenson because I'm more familiar with the variation.
So let's just jump into the center to just group all the discs together, just playing groups more inside at the moment, just flipping one disc in one direction. And at the same time, white doesn't have access to either of these moves on c5 and e3.
So for this case, the most important thing is to gain back the middle control. And following book move, this g5 will be the best option.
Over here, the common book variations is to play either g4 or g6, depending on which you want. The best is obviously g4 because that's based on the book. G6 is also quite popular as a Tama Plaza variation. So today I'm actually going to go for a slightly different one, which is to f3, which is Logistello. Basically just regrouping at the same time, still maintaining within the center 16 region.
Now I will want to have access to c5. So e3 look tempting. It gives me the access to c5.
So usually in Othello, when you think from a more active perspective, you would think of which moves that you can play to. But if you think in a more passive manner, you would then think if the next step were to be your opponent's move, where would he go? So in an active perspective, I would consider actually g4 disc. That would be a very quick straight cut down to 2 disc and also regroup my disc together and roughly flipping this in the center, so I don't really create more moves for my opponent. But at the same time, I want to consider that the e3 move that he just made has created a nice access to a nice c5 move, which is quiet move for him. So usually when I want to before I consider my own moves, I want to consider my opponent's move because there is no rush for me to actually jump into g4 at the moment. I want to think slightly more passively. So passively, I would then try to deal with the c5 move that my opponent is targeting. So usually when the game transits to more an opening to mid-game situation, we try to apply a few mid-game principles, which besides groups more inside, you also have prevention, which is basically removing access. So e3 provides access to e3 provides access to c5 for my opponent. I want to remove the e3 disc. So there are two options I can do this. Maybe I can do it by e2 or f2. So f2, maybe white would just jump into e2 and recreate the access which I cannot block. So maybe if I compare the two moves, e2 would be slightly better. And then of course that would be prevention. So I'll just shortlist e2 as a prevention measure. And of course the second way would be poisoning. Poisoning basically means making the move less attractive for him. So over here I can see maybe d7 would be a move that actually makes the move less attractive because he has to flip one more disc in another direction. But the overall shape does not change. He still jumps into the center. So right now, the third option would actually be taking the move itself, which I can also access taking the move itself, which still gives me a relatively center shape. So I would slightly prefer c5.
For me, I think regrouping will be very important. B5 look good in the sense it gives me the whole internal access. And another way that I can cut the middle I will see is D2. But after D2, if he follow up with G4, it feels awkward for me because I lose the whole center. My disc is scattered. I seems to I poison this everywhere. Means everywhere I play, it appears that I will flip more than one direction. And I don't really want to be in that situation. B5 will be my best chance.
Okay, so the opponent has played b5, which is a nice center cut. If I were to choose to cut back almost immediately, it would probably be d7. But if I play d7, he has an easy way to play c7 and control this mini diagonal, which does not allow me to cut back into the center. So right now, the mid game almost looks like a battle of centralizing. So at this point in time, I would just compare maybe g6 and probably e2. Comparing the two moves, I slightly prefer e2 because I feel that the important centralizing axis, no matter how it's being played out, will eventually be this mini diagonal along here and along d7 and g4, and also a mini diagonal that will turn out to be important will be the one between c4 and also e6. So I think I would actually weigh g6 slightly more. So let's go for that move.
The east area is very favorable for Alex because you'll be able to get a lot of tempo out of it. Currently, what I'm looking at, b4 look like a good option. b4 give me the central disc. The bad thing is that it gave Alex b3 a silent move. But after that silent move, it allows my f7 to be a more quieter move. Another benefit of b4 is if he want to play to his tempo, he plays something along the H line where he remove my g5 disc. I will be able to have access to e7, and e7 help me eliminate his silent move and gain access to the top area, which I don't think Alex will want me to do. Yeah, I would think b4 is my best bet currently.
So over here I have probably two obvious cut back into the center moves, which is what Zhe earlier mentioned at c2, which c2 from a head and tail theory perspective almost gives away f7 too quickly, because if I cut this continuous row here, this becomes a quiet move for me to play. So another option would be e2. e2 would also give another quiet move, but the objective here for me earlier on choosing g6 was to maintain the mini diagonal that is being controlled by me at the moment between e6 and also f5. So I think trying to control that diagonal, I will continue to play towards e2 with an anticipation of maybe a quiet move to c2, and then maybe I can proceed down to g3 perhaps.
c2 is very, very tempting. After c2, I immediately have a d2 option. His real weight of removing d2 will be d7, which give me c7, and it's not a shape I would think he favor. And d2 actually kind of poison his silent move in b3. I mean, it's not a in shape-wise, there's no real poison, but some poison is better than no poison. And another option that I can look at is to play to my area, which is actually E7. That's a head and tail theory. But E7 immediately give away F7 chippy, and then I will have no access to the mini diagonal to get my D7, which don't look favorable to me. To go with C2, where it's a safe move, give me D2, and I keep my Ds all to the west area. If I can keep my Ds to the west area, I can play to my tempo. Alex remove one Ds from the east. I take one more from the west, remove one more from the east. There's a rotation. In this sense, I'm not losing out in the mobility fight. And I think as white, we have to be careful because white player have a bit of an advantage in endgame. You have natural priority, but black have the first mover advantage, which means they have the tempo. I do not, as long as I'm not losing out in the tempo and I can get further to the late game, there will be more chance for me to fight the game. So I think survivability and mobility is my top priority now.
Okay. Sounds fair. So, yep, he's played C2 as per what I expected. So, right now, my first instinct would be to actually go to G3, which would be a move that I would still somewhat be able to keep to my side because there is a potential that he can gain tempo by playing D2 next. So, bearing in mind that D2 is a move that I probably wouldn't want to prevent because I would have to flip 3 this, and at the same time, he can just cut back. If I were to play D7, can just cut back that excess by playing C7 easily and just control this mini diagonal which I cannot access back. So I will probably elect not to prevent it, but rather to poison it. Perhaps poison it would be G3. Of course, G3 would give white an easy G4, which I would probably respond with a quiet move to maybe H4 and just try to move the entire group of this more towards the right side and try to create more moves in the process of doing so. Another option would be to take the move, but currently I don't have any access to take the move, so I wouldn't do that. Of course, another approach would be to just ignore it entirely and maybe play a head and tail quiet move to C7. But I think given the direction of the group of this going towards the right side, there is no need for me to break more this or moves to the left side and create more moves for white. So at this point in time, I would probably prefer to play G3. So let's just go ahead with G3.
I think I'm kind of forced to play G4 despite the follow-up Alex have. I mean, he had his follow-up, I have my follow-up. We're just trading tempo currently.
White has moved into the center space right now, and probably an obvious quiet move would be to play the G4. Just want to try to read the game a bit further. If I were to play G4, potentially based on the head and tail theory, the last move that I'm playing being the head, the tail end would probably give an easy white move to E7 potentially. So maybe I could go H4 and then anticipate at E7 and then either go to H5 or H3, either one. So overall the game plan here is to just try to keep this group together and also bring the entire group to the right side so I can try to retain more moves. So let's go with H4.
The only way to save the tempo is H5. I mean, if you play H5, H3, H2, yes, I got one tempo, but the cost seems to be quite great. I mean, I already have the whole C line being white. If the whole H line is white, any wrong move will just result me in a very bad death. As I said, for white, I think survivability is important. I don't really want to challenge the H area. So my silent word is like D2, just now from what I already said, and E7. I am more inclined towards D2 currently. D2 allows me to have a lot of things in the north region. E2, E1, F2. Then I mean there's a lot of tempo that I can follow up with and not something that Alex can just take away for now. So it looks good. And even after all this follow up, I don't really lose my E7 move. the real way for Alex to remove e7, I mean to make it a bit worse, is actually just d7, which gives me an even better move at c7. So I will go d2 first to see if I can play out the tempo in that region before deciding if I need to go to e7.
Okay. Yep. So d2 has been played. If I were to play and continue to group to the right side by playing h3 or h5, I think that would be sort of ignoring his approach to the edge, to the top. So I think now the current threat move is actually white playing consecutive moves to f1 and f2. So that would actually gain him tempo. So in Othello, usually you want to try to control that move, control and try to gain as many moves as possible. At this point in time, I would actually prefer a slightly more interactive move such as c1 because it cuts back into the center in a quiet manner, and at the same time it's trying to control the top edge instead of surrendering the edge entirely. And a move like c1 would also still prevent any quiet move to e1, and also potentially I could then move on to b3 as well if I want to cut back to the left. Probably I wouldn't want to touch any of the moves on the left hand side because currently there is no urgency for that, and he basically cannot play to that region. Just go ahead with c1 for now.
If I want to try to play out something like f1, e1, d1, g1, then f2, it allows him to balance this unbalanced edge easily also. I mean it's a very normal way of playing out certain move on the area. It's just, I think I will play out the whole first row, which means I will play f1, see how he responds, give up that whole row, and see if he will balance first or he will take his tempo move first.
Okay, so the opponent has played f1. Usually a move like f1 creates somewhat of a cross or a pair, but then with a cross black and white disc, which is somewhat of an equilibrium edge in which both players are trying to initiate control or some plays along the edge. So usually this would actually require quite an active response from black to either d1 or e1. If I want to play something like e1, but at the same time, just want to bear in mind that my future move that I'm considering is to play into b3. So e1 might be slightly better than d1 at the moment because I do not poison or obstruct my future b3. And if I were to play somewhere else onto the right first, white would just simply take d1 and just try to initiate that access to the edge, and at the same time white would also have a quiet move to f2 following that exchange. So I want to play probably on the e1 move right now.
For me, I think my best option is to d1, make him form something. If I can go inside f2, I mean I trade a tempo with him, it's still back to me, but I think the shape now I will be more comfortable. It's just,
so for me right now, white has initiated to touch the edge. So in Othello, you always value moves. So if you were to ignore this edge contact, and if I were to play somewhere else, he would grab the edge, and then I would have to play one more move on the outside, which would create even more moves for him elsewhere. So for me, I cannot let go of this edge. Instead, I would have to accept the edge and anticipate that he jumps in right here into f2. So that's basically a natural response for me at the moment.
if I play h3, I don't think he will want to enter f2 yet, because if, like I said earlier, it actually flipped the g3 disc, and then it gave me one extra tempo at the edge. I don't see a big difference, which make h3 a bit better since I can go into f2 later.
So like what Zhen has analyzed, it does give two options or maybe three options for me. right now, which in Othello, I think usually if you give your opponent options that are more or less equal weighted, it's always more challenging to decide and probably try to discern. So you definitely have to calculate a little bit further into the tempo. So if I first consider f2, I would also flip g3, and other than f3 this I would flip g3. That gives him h move to h5, and even if I were to feed and unbalance it to h6, h7, because the g3 disc is now black, he can balance it back at h2 in the future. So that's probably one thing that I want to avoid. So I probably can't take the move in this case. Prevention will probably be too much because I'll be flipping 4 discs in 2 different directions and creating a whole lot of moves for him below. Poisoning doesn't seem to be an option as well because I cannot make it more unattractive unless I play h5. So h5 will definitely make it less attractive, but he would basically be faster than me to the move to f2 itself, which is still relatively quiet for him because h5 makes the entire f column over here actually black. So maybe h5, f2. If I were forced, I would probably jump into. So another option would be to go into h2. If I go to h2, the same result happens in a sense that he goes into f2, and then I have to cover h5 back, and still forms the same shape per se. So for now, I actually prefer a more compact cutback. So I'll probably choose h5 over the other moves, and then to have more options basically. Even if the follow-up of f2, I can still play maybe b1 instead of h2.
Either way, now he has the f2 move, and if I don't do anything, he'll just take f2, which will be very bad for me. So regardless, I have to take f2 first.
So I'm just gonna go ahead with the tempo move, which is on h2, and just try to build along the right side and see whether I can cut off the excess towards moving to the lower left.
I will take a more aggressive play. I really need moves now. I will play h7.
Okay.
If anything goes wrong, I may just play g7 and see if I can. See if I can force a trade in corner at least. He won't want this trade at all because he will lose everything on the top side. And he give me back access to my c7 if I play g7.
So now my considerations are my direct access to b1 is definitely removed. At the same time, I do sense that in terms of mobility, I'm slightly ahead because the safe discs for him are basically now e6 and f6. So if I can somehow find a way to run him out of moves there, I can actually try to seal the game off. So one of the easiest way to actually just cut back would be to just play f6, which is probably the easiest and most direct way to gain back the excess. One consideration is maybe his potential response to d7, which probably goes like f7, d7, and then e7 and e8. Something along that lines of that sequence. Or he might force g7 and try to capture h6 in the process. So another option would be to play e7 right now. So e7 actually allows white to actually cut almost immediately to the lower right, which I probably want to avoid at this point in time. But it also creates that access back to b1 via capturing the d3 disc. I'll go ahead to play f7 right now and try to maintain that centership. And
okay, I will play e7. Even if he follow up, I think I can have some follow-ups.
Okay. The concern here is also along the diagonal, so I want to explore maybe ways that I can capture the diagonal. In this case, I think since he has already reduced mobility, I can actually go for the b1 move here and just utilize that spare move at this point in time and try to work something along the diagonal perhaps.
My main survival move should be g8, but I will just go with this first.
Okay, yeah. So like what Zhen said, the reason why I played B1 is to try to envision a potential B2, B3 followed by A3 control of the diagonal, which would probably result in him taking a forceful H6 that gives up the corner to me. And I would then take H8 where white would jump into A1, which would give him access to H1. Black, white, black, white, black, white. I don't want to be swindled perhaps to G2 along the way, so I'll probably have to jump into G2 almost immediately, which will result him having an additional move to A2, and a continuation would be A4, A5, followed by my free move to G7, and he'll take the corner, and then I will be able to actually move towards the bottom part. So I think just working out the tempo here, I think B2 actually works fine. So I'll just take a gamble over here and see whether that works out for me.
I mean, that's my only option.
Yeah.
Everything was already calculated. So
Yes.
I will just keep it to what was calculated.
So now in exchange for tempo, I actually capture G7, which actually redirects the game down bottom. In exchange, he has the strong H1 corner and the diagonal control down all the way to A8. So now when I'm trying to end the game, I'll try to consider the simplest approach, which would be to play to F8, followed by E8, and then probably with the move to D7 perhaps. So the only concern right now is that I wouldn't have any access to the corner if I continue that way. So I'll need to count.
Alex is counting. Since this is an exhibition game, I think just now his move at G2 is very important because there's a swindler there.
Mm-hmm.
If any person who carelessly not miss G2, I play G2 and I get H1, it's pretty much game over for black because I got so much stability in this whole top region. So be careful not to miss moves like G2. I mean, Alex will miss it, but yeah, when other people looking at this video, be careful not to miss such swindler move.
Okay, so now it seems to be quite challenging to actually count out the final situation here because of the diagonal control by white. So usually in the endgame, based on my experience, is that if you have a huge sweep from right to left and you have so many squares that are still higher above on the left hand side, you might have to construct a bit more moves to the left before actually wrapping it up from the right to left. Because if you just go from right to left, you might risk actually poisoning all your moves to the left. So over here, I'm considering a construction move to maybe C7. So C7 actually gives opponent maybe D7, and if I go down here, he would still have one more move over here. It's still a bit risky. If I were to count the lines, running short of time here, might have to take a gamble. Okay, I'll go with C7 over here as a constructing move.
I'm not sure how good C7 is if you ask me for my opinion because I mean if I'm black for my playing style I always like to take H8 F8 first because immediately now I'm at the parity, then I'll play C7 to play out the move. I mean that's my style of playing because I'm a player who like parities a lot. So to me that's a very important thing. But maybe I don't know if he count, maybe he will still have parity in the end. This C7 gives me 3 moves, so I think I should make sure that I take all 3 moves. For now I will take D7 first. I will still have B6 and then one of the 3 moves in the 8 line.
So for now I think I'll just go with F8 to just try to keep to my side, just bearing in mind that I'm running short of time and probably parity is going to be a huge concern.
I have no reason to give up them for the bottom line, so for me I think B8 seems immediate first.
Okay, sounds fair. I will probably consider almost immediately a B6 move for parity. And also to poison the move to a6.
I learned like this one. Simply it look like there's more this.
Okay, so
I'm
I'll
not
just
sure
grab
it's
this move. Yep, and then to the corner.
Just look like there's more this. Okay, never mind. I just go for this.
Okay,
I'm
so
not sure which one.
yeah, +3 -1. Okay, yep. So I think that was quite a close shave for me. Somehow I think I didn't. I just felt slightly more comfortable maybe towards the late mid game, but somehow the end game became a bit tight. So yeah, that was a good game. Thank you, Zhen Wei, for participating in this exhibition match.
Thank you, Alex, also
Yeah.
for organizing this.